Okay. Hi, I'm Hillary Holzenbach, and welcome to episode 140 of Art This Week. In this episode, we continue our coverage of Dallas, New York connections. Rosanna visits the studio of Long Island City-based artist William Lamson. He currently has 2 works in the group exhibition Light and Landscape at Storm King Art Center in Mountainville, New York. Now for Art This Week.
Hi, I'm Rosanna Vargas-Forbes here in Long Island, speaking with William Lamson about his exhibition in Storm King Art Center. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
I definitely want to start by asking you, when you first found out that you were going to be a part of the Storm King Art Center exhibition for 2012, did you immediately know what you wanted to create?
No, it took a while to come up with both projects, but I was immediately really excited just because Storm King is kind of this amazing place in my mind. It's one of the few sculpture parks that give each work almost like an acre to each, so it's this kind of really nice way of treating the landscape, giving the landscape its own space and giving each artwork its own space as well. And the artists in Storm King that are in the permanent collection, but also in the kind of temporary shows, are all really amazing artists. So it was a bit intimidating to try and come up with a piece or two that could somehow kind of relate to the landscape, but also kind of fit in with my own practice, which is often video-based or more performative and sometimes non-permanent. So it took a while, and I only ended up proposing the solarium idea in January of this year. Basically, it took a long time, and then we had a very short amount of time to execute.
Tell us about Last Light. I definitely want to.
Yeah.
I've read about it, but I want to know.
So the idea for Last Light was just a kind of simple gesture in that I wanted to pull this kind of reflective piece of material across the pond in the direction of the setting sun on the longest day of the year. Mm-hmm. And in that way, this reflective material basically it reflects the sky, and it just kind of glows out of the pond and kind of looks like this kind of ray of light that's been suspended in the pond. And there's the technical problems, as I mentioned, but then there was also kind of the formal issues of just how will it be suspended underwater? Mm-hmm. Should it go up, or should it just be on the surface, or what? And it kind of became an aesthetic decision as well, like where does this look the best, and how does the way it look kind of reference this idea of this kind of angular shaft of light that would be setting over the mountains, mm-hmm. On June 20th, mm-hmm. How will this form represent that idea? Mm-hmm. So in the end, I kind of decided on the part that's closest to the setting sun is right at the surface, and then it kind of goes down 4 feet, and over the course of almost 200 feet, mm-hmm. the entire 3-foot piece of material kind of gets folded in half. So it kind of descends to basically a point or an edge. Mm-hmm. So it kind of disappears visually when you look at it. So
is it to emulate the setting sun period, that it just kind of goes away slowly? Just as the sun sets, there's always a kind of last beam of light, and mm-hmm. on the longest day of the year, that without clouds, the same mm-hmm. thing will happen. And mm-hmm. I kind of wanted the viewer to kind of think about that idea, mm-hmm. and just the poetics of just that moment, mm-hmm. And being able to kind of maintain it or mm-hmm. Prolong it or kind of reference it in this mm-hmm. in this piece. But basically, it's the material is pretty. When you pull it, when you stretch it, it kind of wants to stay flat. And so, on the front there's 2 pieces of wood that are, it's rolled up, clamped, and then pulled from one end and then pulled from the other. And just using a few little kind of flotation things to kind of keep it buoyant here, and then, a weight on the other side to keep it underwater. It just kind of is held in tension, basically. Kind of like a sail or something like that. And since there's really no current to speak of in the pond, it more or less stays in the same place. Will you tell us about Solarium?
Yeah, sure. So that project was the one that I proposed in January. Mm-hmm. And in 2010 I did a project somewhat like that at this residency in Wendover, Utah, called the Center for Land Use Interpretation. And there I basically asked them if I could remove the windows that were in the studio there in the gallery space and cover the outside of them in caramel, like heating up sugar 300 degrees, making different colors, pouring it into kind of onto the glass, kind of using it as a mold basically. And the idea for that piece was that it would change, you know, because sugar absorbs water. Even in the desert there, it basically over time kind of absorbed moisture from the atmosphere and slowly kind of ran down the outside of the building. And so the idea was that this color was constantly changing. The light coming through this was kind of running over each other, and it was always in flux. For Storm King, I wanted to try and, you know, work with this material again, but maybe in a capacity that wasn't, you know, so messy and also so in flux, you know. So you know, the idea in this case was basically to use a greenhouse, a structure that we're familiar with for obviously raising plants, and to change this one element, to kind of use sugar, put it, or heat it to 300 degrees, excuse me, and seal it between two panes of glass, and then have it kind of reference, you know, like a chapel and a greenhouse, and, you know, this kind of iconic house on a hill that's like, I think is a very kind of American idea of just like a homestead, or, you know, like the Rose one-room cabin. There's a lot of references that I think like this little house, one-room house in the landscape reference. And, you know, at Storm King, it's certainly a place to kind of experience the landscape and to kind of sit and just like be in this amazing landscape, but also kind of inside a space simultaneously. So.
Did you get to choose where it was going to go?
I did, and well, I mean, there's not, yes and no, in that I wanted it kind of on this hill, and I made a rendering and put it on a hill that I thought would be a great place, and then they were like, well, that part, you know, is a little too close to this other sculpture, but why not over here on the other side of that same hill? And it was perfect, you know. So when they, you know, accepted that kind of site, it made me really like determined to make this project happen, because it's hard to imagine finding a better site for that sculpture.
Yeah, it almost reminds you of a chapel at the same time, but it doesn't. And it even you put seats, so it was somewhere for people to sit. Was that?
Yeah, I mean, was
that from the beginning you knew you wanted to implement that?
I wanted just to have like a few plants so that it kind of it maintains this kind of experimental capacity where, you know, I wanted to see if we could actually grow plants there, and so we're growing 3 different miniature citrus trees. These 2 Meyer lemons, and then this miniature navel orange tree. And then I wanted like a little place to sit where you could kind of sit within this colored light house and kind of look through the panels, and then look through the open doors and just kind of be in the landscape and kind of be within this, you know, totally artificial space, but one that is very much kind of constructed to allow you to kind of access the out of doors, you know, because all of the doors open, and that was an important part of the design, so that you could kind of enter and exit this building from any direction, and that air could move through it, and it wouldn't become, you know, that kind of gross experience of going into a greenhouse when it's like really hot and muggy, and like, you know, it needed to be something that people could actually be inside and be comfortable, and so the door design kind of allowed that. There are kind of 2 experiences, I think, of the house. Of one, just kind of seeing it from a distance and kind of being intrigued by what it is and what it's for, and then kind of being inside it. And it, you know, inside it, then there's like, you know, so much information, in the sense that there's so many different, you know, unique panels, and they're changing, and some have dripped out a little bit, so that, you know, the levels aren't all the same, and there's a lot to look at, you know, beyond just the landscape itself, which you can kind of obviously see through these panes to see the kind of colorized landscape too.
Right. Did you put the sugar panes between glasses? Is that what you said?
Yeah, no, I mean, this was a part of the learning process, you know. I definitely thought that through somewhat, but I didn't get a chance to do like a full-on test and leave these panels outdoors in the full midday sun, heating and contracting over like weeks. So I didn't know the best way to seal these. So, you know, I ended up spending a couple days, about a month later, going back and resealing a bunch of them and kind of sealing them into place, because a lot of them leaked. And this was part of, you know, being somewhat of an amateur, and you know, I kind of embrace that term, and that, like, you know, this isn't something I have experience doing, but it's an idea I'm really interested in, so I want to kind of follow it anyways. But the problem is that, you know, you don't know the best way to do things, and under a tight time frame, you have to make decisions. So I think we've more or less dealt with that problem, but it was definitely, it was a little nerve-wracking to see, like, the mess that this was creating, and being like, oh no, that's not what they can't keep it open if it's like, if sugar's running out, so I needed to kind of deal with it. So now it's pretty well sealed.
We want to thank William for speaking with us. More information on him can be found at williamlamson.com. Light and Landscape is on view through November 11th, 2012. More information on the exhibition in Storm King Art Center can be found at stormking.org. In Dallas, William is represented by Marty Walker Gallery, and they can be found at martywalkergallery.com. That's it for Art This Week. Thanks for watching.
I still got your Polaroid.